Twilight slid around a corner, cursing the second of speed she lost by doing so, before breaking into a run in an attempt to compensate. The shadows around her lit up, and she fired a concussive blast at the seemingly bioluminescent changeling without breaking her stride. She hissed inequably before shrinking back from the blast, and Twilight continued her gallop, finally catching sight of her target. A wooden door at the end of an ominous hallway. She slammed them open dramatically to power slide into the center of the dimly lit room, directly beneath a chandelier lit by jade green stones. As she whipped her head around the room, searching for the one who had called her here, she heard a faint creak above her and caught the falling chandelier in her magic without thinking, tossing it beside her. An evil cackle resounded throughout the room, and she charged a magical attack as the darkness jeered at her.
Very clever, princess. Your instincts have certainly improved since our last encounter.
Enough games, Chrysalis. Show yourself.
Chrysalis whispered suddenly, catching Twilight off guard. She whipped around to see the wall shift and immediately discharged her shot at the wall, blowing it into dust as the outline of a tail slipped away behind it. Twilight leaped through the hole, reaching a dark room lit by spider-like webs made of the neon green substance changelings seemed to leave behind. Two eyes lit up at the end of the room, faint enough that Twilight wouldn't have caught it if she hadn't seen this trick pulled several times before. She swung her head down to parry at the last moment, feeling an unpleasant scrape as Chrysalis leapt out of the shadow and clashed their horns together. Twilight snarled as she was lifted off her hooves and slammed against the wall, and she charged her horn again in preparation as Chrysalis bared her teeth. After a tense moment that seemed to last an eternity, they lunged at each other at the same moment, coming in for a deep kiss that lasted even longer. They both fell to the ground, rolling around a stone and snarling insults while coming up for breath. They finally broke apart and slunk to opposite sides of the room to catch their breaths.
Give it up, Chrysalis. You're not going to get away with... What did you do again?
I don't remember what the plan was again. I was mostly focused on getting you here.
You didn't... Whatever. We can still fight.
Their horns lit once more, and Chrysalis smirked as she watched her opponent charge her head on.
You ran out to fight Chrysalis without telling us, and then you kissed her? I thought she captured one of the princesses or something. You thought she was putting your mentors in mortal danger, so you kissed her? She invited me to fight her again next week. I think I'll go. She tore off your hind leg this time!
Twilight glanced at the messy stump below the hospital bedsheets before sheepishly turning back to Rarity.
I'm sure she'll give it back next time. She swallowed it whole! So it'll be in the same condition I left it in.
Rarity sunk her head into the bed, prompting a few sheepish pats from Twilight.
Twilight, my closest friend. Twilight, a corner sparkle. Why in Celestia's name do you feel the need to throw yourself into her arms again?
I can't help it. She's just so powerful. So many fools have dared to call themselves my equal, and she can actually back up that claim. I hate her with every molecule of my body. At the same time, I feel drawn to her. Does that make sense?
The drone stayed silent, continuing to shine the chitin of his queen as she continued monologuing in response to a question he hadn't asked in the first place. She pondered her nemesis some more while absent-mindedly running a hoof through her hair. When she glared at him suddenly, it occurred that he was meant to answer.
Yes, my queen.
I've invited her over again for next week. Feel free to abandon the hive that day to save your skin from our rampage. Oh, I can't wait!
She giggles in a fashion someone not working under her tyranny might consider adorable, and the drone briefly wondered if he was meant to laugh along, as he was obligated to during her evil cackles.
Yes, I know a monarch of my status shouldn't concern themselves over such trivial matters as love in any form besides edible. But think of the glory each fight brings us. Two eternal rivals, battling for supremacy in a foreign field as cities burn in their wake, unnoticed by either. And if this is love, it's powerful enough to feed my children for centuries. Ah, yes, I will meet her, and we will fight, and we will see what happens. I'm so excited!
The battle had raged for hours now, with both sides straining to overcome the exhaustion gained from fighting their equals in strength and stamina. The fight had left the hive long ago. Carrying through the wastelands, we were settling on the top of a disc-shaped plateau with a long crack running diagonally across its otherwise perfectly flat surface. Both sides struggled to keep their footing at opposite sides, desperate to not show weakness to their enemy. Finally, Twilight collapsed down on her prosthetic leg, struggling to pull herself over to her weakly giggling foe. As she reached Chrysalis, the changeling queen began to stiffly jerk, before leaning forward and spitting Twilight's bile-covered leg on the ground in front of her.
Thanks.
No problem.
Please, Chrysalis, this has gone on long enough. Why do you keep fighting me? You haven't done anything this time. It feels like you just like fighting me.
I do! I love fighting you, but I just feel something else between us, and I don't know what it is!
You do?
She nodded limply before finally collapsing in front of the princess. Twilight pulled herself over and nervously laid her head on Chrysalis's chitinous belly. When she made no move to stop her, she took another cautious step by running a hoof through the queen's hair.
How about we call a truce on this one? My friends are probably worried about me. I was kind of in a hospital when I ran after you. We can call a truce, and next week, after we've healed up a little, maybe you could come to the castle and we could have lunch together?
I'd like that. I'd like that a lot.
Twilight snuggled up to her some more, and they lay there, staring up into the clouds, both of them suddenly unsure of their futures.
Support me on Patreon. Subscribe and make sure to ring that notification bell to know when I post new content. And please, feel free to join the Lotus Garden. Links in the description. Thanks for listening, and look forward to more. Good night, every pony.